Hello, I'm Abbas Jaffer. Today I'm going to be demoing the upload page and upload data button on the SkillCourt mobile app. As you can see here, we're on the home page, and the upload data page is on the bottom right hand corner of the home page. We're going to take a look at user registration first, since the upload data page is modeled after this user registration page. We have the green background, create user at the top, all rights reserved. I'm going to refresh this real quick. As you can see in the actual upload page, we kind of follow that same layout since they both have the same fundamental. Green background, upload data, all rights reserved, upload button in the middle. If you hit the upload button, an indeterminate loading bar shows up. Normally, this would be a determinate loading bar, so it would take in how much data is being processed and upload it accordingly. As of recording this, the databases are not synced, so we were not able to code this. But for the next group that does work on this, it is a very easy switch to go from indeterminate to determinate, and that way it'll actually update upon every upload.
Hello everybody, my name is Javier Fernandez. This is for the SkillCourt 2022 Capstone 2 project. My contribution is the addition of the data points for the pad from the website to the pad. For example, if you put a game length, for sake of the video I will put 0, pad light up time, which is for how many seconds the pad lights up for, and the pad interval time is for how many seconds between pad light ups times. You would hit play, and when the game is completed, you would get this pop-up screen showing how many hits, how many misses, your hit rate, and also the hits per second. For the sake of the video, I have hard-coded 30 seconds, so that is why 5 hits per 30 seconds, that's 0.17 hits per second. And that is it. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Carlos and I will be presenting today my contribution on the SkillCourt project on the side of the mobile app. The beginning of the project was pretty challenging because we ran into some issues while setting up the environment. We ran into issues with a Flutter version that had been used in previous semesters. Flutter upgraded his version to the 3.3.9, and some functions were deprecated on this version. So we had to reinstall Flutter in a lower version in order to make the project work. This error took us about a week or more to solve, and we lost a certain amount of development time because of this error. Also, we as a group were unfamiliar with the technologies used in this project, so it took us more time to understand what was happening on the mobile side. So during this semester, I have been pretty much working on the start.dart file. This is the main file where the logic happens for the application. In the beginning, as I'm gonna show you right now, the app was hard-coded where values were already set up and did not allow the app to be tested correctly. So I'm gonna show you here these values from the game length, pad light up, and pad interval. They are hard-coded, so it's always gonna be 31 and 2. If I start the game and I try to put, let's say, a game length of 50 seconds, and I hit play, it's not gonna work because it's already set up to 30. And it was always like that, so it doesn't allow the app to be tested correctly. That was something that I worked during this semester, as well as the pad light time up, the pad light up time, and the pad interval time. I'm gonna show you right now how I fix it. Okay, so after a few weeks understanding the code and see what everything does on the code, I was able to receive the parameter that I want for the game length, for the pad light up time, and for the pad interval time to receive those values from the screen. So for example, if I now do here like a 45 seconds, I want to show you only the game length because it's the only one that is visible, because the pad light up time and the pad interval time is not gonna be visible because we don't have the actual pad right now. So if I do the game length, if I set it up on 45 seconds and I hit play, it will display the 45 seconds counting down to 0. This section right here is where everything happens when you receive all the values from the screen. So we have here the game length, we have the path light up, and the path interval. Those three values are the ones that we receive when we start the game, and we set it up here. Another thing that I worked on was on the bug that the app had, where when the counter reached 0, the app keep continuing counting to negative numbers. So I already fixed that error, and I'm gonna show you here just for testing purposes. I'm gonna do 5 seconds here and hit play, and it counts to 0 without a problem. It's not gonna count on negative numbers. It's gonna stop on 0. Again, once the path is connected to the phone, it's gonna display all the information on the app about the hits, about the interval, and also the timer. So that's everything that I have done on the app as right now, and I hope you guys enjoy the demo. Thank you.
Hey guys, so for this video, I'm going to be demoing the contributions made to the website portion of the SkillCourt project. And what I want to start with is with the updates to the c.typescript file that we had to make. The original TypeScript file was not working as the schema was outdated, and we had to update it to a brand new schema to match the schema that we were going to use for the GraphQL API endpoint. And you can see here the changes that we made especially for the users, and we worked mostly with the test clubs, and we worked with creating them straight from here, as well as sending data, receiving data. You see the test groups, and these will be the players, the games, and that was all we were able to work on. But these schemas are all updated from the previous schemas, which were outdated and weren't working. After changing the schema, we also had to work with the resolver files, which are basically the files that allow the API to communicate with the database via the server files. So as we see here, we have files for the player, as this is a player.resolver file, and we have it to add players to a database, to update players, to find players. So basically all the functionalities of a CRUD API. And then we have the same thing for users as well as for clubs, which we had to match the same schema from the database to be able to create API calls from the mobile application to communicate with the database and add or remove or update players, clubs, users, or games. You can see in any of these functions, the return is essentially the GraphQL schema that we're looking for, as in this one will return the ID of the player, which I will be demoing later via Postman. And you can see that for the most part, it's the IDs that we return, unless we're looking for something very specific. And it's the same for many of them, that we return the ID as that's the most specific identifier that each kind of data point has. You see, and then as you see, when you want to create a player, we have a specific function for creating the player, which essentially just adds the data that came in the payload to the database and allows us to later fetch it through the other functions. As part of working with the database and the API, we also had to find a way to expose the database to a port to be able to communicate with it through Postman or through the mobile application. And to do that, we simply added to the Docker Compose override, we added the database section which exposes a port, and by exposing the port, it essentially allows us to communicate with it, since before it wasn't exposed and we weren't able to make any calls to it, get any information from it, or add any information to it. So this was a crucial first step before working with the database, because without this, we weren't able to do anything with it. After updating the schema and updating the Docker Compose override and getting all the functions ready to be able to receive API calls, we were finally able to work with the pre-request script to basically send information, send a payload in order to get information back. And as you see here, there's a test pre-request script where we're testing with a specific email and password, which is a test email and password that are stored in the database. And what this pre-request script is essentially doing is sending the payload, and it's also setting the access token, which we have set here with the bearer token. And other than that, we have this simple GraphQL query, which is basically looking for a user, and it's going to return the ID, which is what we showed here, which it returns the ID. And when you run that, you see here that it returns the data, user, and the ID is simply 123. So after creating the queries for the GraphQL, which fetches information, the next step was to insert information into the database, which we use with a mutation. And as you see here, we have a test create club mutation, which essentially just creates the club with the ID, but we also send in the GraphQL variables here, which is the difference between the mutation and the query. We have a test club, and we have a random ID that was generated, and we have a phone ID, and when this is run, it's sent to the database and it's inserted into the database, and then we can fetch it with this one, with the query, which is the difference between a GraphQL query and a mutation. The query fetches data, and the mutation essentially inserts data into the database. Now, although we were able to get the API working and running on a local environment, we were not able to expose it to the mobile application, and that was one of the goals for this project, and that counts as one of our shortcomings, as we both did our parts individually, but we haven't been able to connect them yet, as we ended up finishing the API and the mutations and queries very late into the project. So that will hopefully be one of the things that is resolved at the next group in the next semester, as one of the things that we were hoping to accomplish, but we were unfortunately not able to accomplish. And that is the end of the demo of the website's contributions. Thank you.